Welcome back to the Caregiver Minute, where every weekday family and professional caregivers gather to refine their skills, gain inspiration, and prepare to serve. At the beginning of my career, I worked as a program director in a large assisted living community. In that building, I had an office at the end of one hall, and right next to that office was a bathroom. Now, for the first little while that I worked there, I would regularly go into the bathroom, and there would be no toilet paper. So I just quit using that bathroom. About 2 years later, we found out why, despite our housekeeping team's best efforts, there was rarely toilet paper in that bathroom. We had a resident who lived around the corner, and when she passed away and her family came in to clean out her apartment, they opened the hall closet and they found floor-to-ceiling toilet paper. This woman had been hoarding toilet paper. Now, other than that, she was a great resident. She came to a lot of activities, she was engaging, she said funny things. We enjoyed her, but she hoarded toilet paper. Now, that wasn't the last time that I would run into hoarding. In fact, I've had many experiences going into people's homes to consult with them or provide guidance for the family, and I'll walk in and see stacks of newspaper where there's a very tight pathway to get through the home. In one home, I even walked in and there were piles of old cameras. Now, I have no idea why this person was stockpiling old cameras, except that he had been involved in photography earlier in life, and maybe he was worried about not having enough cameras. One of the biggest challenges that we run into when people are hoarding is that that's a response to anxiety, and they're keeping those things because having them somehow neutralizes the anxiety that they're experiencing. A lot of hoarding behavior is driven by experiences earlier in life. Many of the people that I've served over the years grew up in the Great Depression era, or they had parents that were severely affected by the Depression. And so they hung on to everything, partly because they had to. There was a reason for them to be anxious about not having enough of something. It's important to recognize that when someone is experiencing anxiety, they often look for something that will tamp that anxiety down. And if you're afraid that you might not have enough of something, the neutralizing behavior is to store more of that anytime you get your hands on it. Many caregivers struggle knowing how to respond to hoarding behavior, and there's not an easy answer. Just understanding that it's an anxiety response, I think, is helpful. It allows us to be a little bit more empathetic. But beyond that, how do we even respond? One of the most helpful things that we can consider is whether the behavior puts the person at risk or not. If someone has stockpiled so many piles of things that they cannot safely navigate their space and they're at risk for tripping on something, that's a problem, and that's when we need to intervene. One of the most common things that people hoard is food, and in cases like that, it's important to regularly check someone's refrigerator and clean out molding, rotting food that could really cause serious problems for them were they to eat it. And sometimes people do. So if you're serving someone who's exhibiting hoarding behavior, you might just ask yourself, is there anything about this that is unsafe or that would cause a problem for this person? When it came to the woman that lived around the corner from my office, stockpiling toilet paper, it really didn't put her at risk. She had it all in the hall closet. It's not like she had piles of toilet paper elsewhere in her apartment. We didn't even know about her doing that until after she passed. And she was otherwise a great resident. So even though we didn't choose to, that was hoarding behavior that we didn't intervene in, and it didn't do any harm. But there are lots of people that I've worked with where we've had to remove nasty food from their refrigerator so that they don't get sick and die from food poisoning. Once we recognize that hoarding behavior is also driven by anxiety, we can start looking at it in terms of an overactive sympathetic nervous system kind of response. And as we talked about yesterday, there's a lot of things that we can do to help the people that we're serving to calm that down, to be more relaxed. Even helping people engage in meaningful activity so that they're not focused on whatever is triggering their anxiety and their hoarding behavior can be really helpful. So the next time you see someone exhibiting hoarding behavior, I invite you to, number one, recognize it as a response to anxiety and ask yourself what things you could do to help them stay focused on things that are positive and don't trigger their anxiety. What things could you do to help train their parasympathetic nervous system, their rest and digest and calm everything down part of the nervous system? And then you might just ask yourself whether the hoarding behavior actually presents a risk. Maybe it doesn't, and it's something that you don't need to pay that much attention to. I hope that's helpful to you and the people that you serve, and I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow for another episode of the Caregiver Minute.